Welcome back, everyone, to the Go 247 podcast. I'm the senior writer here at the site, Glenn West, and joined today again by Dylan Sanders, our contributing writer. Dylan, how are you today, man?
I am doing good, ready for some more football and hopefully a better result.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're expecting a pretty large crowd here, I think, for the first home opener here in Death Valley. Um, yeah, expected probably 200,000 people will probably be roaming LSU's campus throughout the day for various tailgating opportunities, and then obviously hustling in there for the game for a sold out crowd here in Death Valley for the LSU's matchup with Southern. We'll get to everything covering the game here in a second, but just kind of wanted to remind you guys to smash that like button here for us on the YouTube page. Make sure you're liking and subscribing everywhere you find your podcasts. So we'll certainly appreciate any and all kind of contributions you guys give in that regard. So with that, we'll get right into LSU and Southern. This is obviously a big game for LSU in terms of just playing the right way. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for me just throughout the week in terms of talking with coaches and players within the program. You want to see a cleaner game with LSU this weekend, and you got a really good opportunity here with the Southern team to really kind of take advantage early. Do some things more mechanically right, some structure issues, some just a lot of various problems that I think LSU can start to fix this weekend against the Jaguars. Just Dylan, you wrote our piece earlier in the week about just early impressions of what this Southern team looks like. Just what are your, I guess, early thoughts on this matchup and on Southern as well?
Yeah, well, so this is going to be a great game for many reasons. Just the whole environment surrounding it, the halftime show, the fact that they're playing Southern, it's going to be crazy. And it's, I think, as good of an environment as you could ask for Brian Kelly's first game in Death Valley, all of the new players' game in Death Valley. They're going to get accustomed quick. But most people don't think the game itself is going to be that good. And it probably won't, just because of the different level of athlete, the different level of talent between the two teams. The gap's pretty big. But Southern is a team that will not allow you to play a sloppy game because they are super aggressive on offense. Pedal to the metal is the offensive philosophy of Eric Dooley. And then on defense, they are just as aggressive. They're going to come after you. And so if you're the offensive line and you struggled against Florida State, you're looking to this to be a game where you can get some things right. They're not going to allow you that opportunity. All of their best players are on that defensive line. Jordan Lewis, their edge rusher, he's a little undersized for SEC level, but like talent, in terms of talent level, he's up there. He's like NFL potential. Like he's a good player. And yeah, so Southern is going to still test you. But there is a little bit more wiggle room than if you're playing a Florida State. But they just do play super, super aggressive. And Bashawn McCray, who should be the starting quarterback for Southern, is dual threat. All of their quarterbacks can run and punish with their legs. He had like 80 rushing yards last week. Yeah. So again, you're going to have to another test where we've seen it for the past 3 years where LSU just cannot tackle quarterbacks that can run. So it's going to be another test with that. So it's going to be a great test for a lot of different parts of LSU's team.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Just kind of eyeballing last week's game from Southern, they were playing an overmatched opponent there, but you did kind of get to see a little bit of how they like to structure their offense. I think they ran the ball nearly 40 times. They passed it about just under 30 times in the game. So they're going to be a run-heavy team, very much like Florida State. And I kind of tend to agree with what you're saying there. LSU's got to be able to get after the quarterback here. They've got to be able to make tackles as a defense. The communication has to be better in the secondary. That's something that Brian Kelly has talked a lot about this week with us. And I think they just have to play. The biggest thing that I think I took away from Brian Kelly's comments and he kind of alluded to it immediately after the Florida State game is this team just has to play 4 quarters of football. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
saw what this potential of this offense and defense can be in that fourth quarter when they made that amazing comeback against Florida State. The problem was the previous 2.5, 3 quarters, there was just so much of a mixed bag. I mean, it was really a lot of mistakes, a lot of self-inflicted mistakes that really need to be corrected against a team like Southern. And you want to feel good about that kind of heading into next week's game, obviously when you start SEC play. So I think you're going to have and look, he said it's something that starts with coaching. You know, they have to prepare these guys a little bit better. They have to know their personnel a little bit better. I was really kind of intrigued by that. I asked him about that on Thursday. Just what does a kind of a disciplined team look like in your eyes? And it's a team that starts fast. It's a team that plays with some urgency. A team that makes the right reads and makes some quicker reads. I think that's something that Jaden Daniels is certainly going to be working on this week. And then it's just getting the ball to the athletes. I mean, that's something we've talked about really all off season. LSU wants to get the ball to these receivers. They got a very talented receiver core. I don't think last week's performance against Florida State has really lowered the expectations on this receiver core. I think that it was obviously a bad game for guys like Kayshawn and Malik Neighbors, and they didn't really work in Jack Besh a whole lot. We found out that Jack Besh has been dealing with a stress fracture in his shin for most of fall camp, so that's something that they've been really bringing him back slowly from. So I do think this is a good opportunity for you to start. If you're an LSU offense and if you're an LSU defense, start rectifying some of the issues that cropped up last week and really put you in a better position leading into Mississippi State.
Yeah, I agree. And luckily for LSU, the clear weakness on this other team is at the wide receiver position. They don't really have anybody. And with the size and speed that LSU has on the corners, I don't expect Southern's passing game to be much in this. At least it shouldn't. Again, I am saying why this game could be interesting, but LSU has no excuses to let this game be close ever.
Yeah.
They have this should be just never in doubt, really.
Right. No, I agree. And I think that if you get to a point where it's not looking good early, then I think you really start to have some big picture takeaways about what this team looks like moving forward. But
Mm-hmm.
I expect this team to come out with a little bit more urgency, a little bit more of a focused approach. It's the thing they brought Brian Kelly in here to do, and I think he probably thought that they were ready, a little bit more ready than they were last week, and it's just about a matter of him going in and fine tuning and recalibrating, I guess, these guys' brains a little bit in terms of how they need to prepare. But you really weren't able to see, and I think that's also a big thing here is that we just didn't know what this team was going to look like last week. I mean, there was so much newness here. We saw it in fall, we saw in spring, and heard throughout the offseason about just how they were coming together and whatnot. But you really can't see it until you see it on the field against another opponent. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that first week is a really good kind of wake up call for LSU. And I think we'll get an opportunity to really see what these guys are made of in the next couple weeks. But kind of with that, I think there's going to be some shakeup at some certain positions. I would imagine that they work in a lot more offensive linemen this week, especially against an opponent like Southern. You want to rotate in guys. That's something that Brian Kelly talked about with us. I think they're going to rotate both tackles. Will Campbell, the true freshman, bless him, he had pretty much every he was on the field for every snap last week, and Coach Kelly admitted, look, we saw a little bit his technique start to suffer throughout the game just because he was on the field for so much time. So I do think they're going to rotate the tackle positions a little bit more. They're going to rotate really the whole offensive line a lot in this game. Want to see a lot of different guys get some opportunities there. Marcus Dumerville was a guy we heard about in fall that didn't really see a whole lot of snaps against Florida State. I would like to see him out there against Southern. You'd like to see some more linebackers out there. I think probably the biggest thing that I'm going to be looking for is just how often does LSU go with a 4-man front on defense? The injury to Mason Smith shakes up everything. I mean, it's just a devastating blow for this defense to lose arguably their best player on the very first drive of the very first game. I mean, it's a game changer. And I think you could certainly see some situations where LSU goes more 3-down linemen, where you have like Roy, Ojulari, and Gay on the front line of defense, and then you have 3 or 4 linebackers. You throw in a different secondary. You might add a second nickel corner or something, but you've got to kind of shake things up defensively, I think, a little bit here with the loss of Smith, and I think it'll be a really good game here against Southern to see just kind of what kind of wrinkles maybe they'll throw into the defense. What are your thoughts on some of the shakeups that you can see it's in certain positions?
Yeah, I expect us to see a very different offensive line at some point in this game, even if it's not to start. Just because it's clear that there needs to be some shakeup. And yeah, Will Campbell did about as good as you could ask for. But it's very clear that as the game went on, he got tired. And again, that's expected, but he's going to have some rotation at the left tackle. The right side of the line was pretty shaky at times. So that's going to need to be figured out. Like, I wonder if we're going to see if they're going to go back to what we saw at camp whenever it was Will Campbell, Tremont Shorts, Garrett Dellinger, Anthony Bradford, and Miles Frazier, and then Anthony Bradford. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they do, because we've seen a ton of combinations during camp. They mentioned Marcus Dumerville was competing at one point. We could see him step up at that right tackle position. So it's gonna be a lot of stuff on the offensive line and defensive line. Obviously, losing Mason Smith is bad, but Mekhi Wingo looked really, really good in his steps, so that really helps. But again, same thing with the offensive line. There's going to have to be some rotation because the defensive line is just not that deep right now. They're going to have to force a bunch of guys into seeing a lot more playing time than they had ever expected. Like Tyjee Hill is someone that was mentioned, and that's a true freshman that you don't want to have to play a lot going into the game, because even people questioned LSU getting Tyjee Hill in the first place, which, he's done all the right things, and it's, in camp, I think it's going to be fine, but you don't want him to play immediately.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Tyjee Hill was a guy that I think they probably viewed as more of a project piece, kind of coming in here. He added about 20 pounds, I think, over the offseason. Coach Kelly said Thursday that he looks pretty good, so they might put him out there against a team like Southern. I mean, I'm not sure how much he'll play, but that could be a good experience level for him. You still got Jacoby and Guillory, you've got Bryce Langston. Those are 2 interior guys that I think you can at least hope to rely on for some rotational time out there on the field. Linebacker, I think I'm going to be really keying in on in this game. We saw a lot of Wes Weeks towards the end of that game on Sunday. I thought he looked pretty good. He's an interior linebacker that has experience playing that position, and he's a thumper, man. I mean, we saw it in camp. He doesn't miss many tackles, and he's a pretty good hitter. So I think you're going to have to get him out on the field as much as possible. Get his feet wet. Harold Perkins was a guy that flashed at times on special teams.
Harold Perkins is a guy that you could see be thrown out there on the edge as well. Maybe you shift Ali Gay inside, you throw Harold Perkins on the edge. We could see that against Southern because, again, Harold Perkins isn't like edge defender size, but we've seen players make up with that with pure athleticism, and at the college level, he's definitely someone that could get that done.
Yeah, I mean, and you want to throw, especially against a team like Southern, your best athletes out there. I mean, your athletes are just going to be better than their athletes. That's just the fact of the matter here. And LSU, I think, has a distinct advantage there if they do want to use 3 or 4 linebackers out on the field at the same time. So I do think that's going to be important to watch. I was impressed just quickly by the cornerback spot. I think kind of heading into last week, there was a lot of skepticism about what that group could do with Jark Bernard-Converse, with Mekhi Gardner, with Colby Richardson. I thought those guys played really well. I thought they did a really nice job overall. They had the one flea flicker play, reverse double play that kind of got them a little bit mixed up there. But I think that's the whole point of that kind of play, is to really throw off the secondary in that situation. So I think that was a really positive sign for this defense. Offensively, I think one of the things they're going to have to really be able to do is find a way to get the running backs involved. I mean, when you have Jaden Daniels and his running, mobility account for 340 of the 360 yards of the total game yardage for LSU, I think that's probably an issue that they want to probably get a little bit more balance in the running attack. Noah Cain, Armani Goodwin both had pretty solid camps. So I think you probably want to establish the run here against Southern, get those guys' feet moving a little bit, get them a little more touches here in this game. And I think that sets you up well for next week. But I guess, are there any final takeaways in which you want to see from LSU this weekend? Any players you're going to be keying in on, anything like that?
I'm definitely going to be keying on Jaden Daniels, who I thought played well. As you just mentioned, he was pretty much the team's entire offense.
Yeah.
There is people are quick to complain that Jaden Daniels ran too fast or escaped the play. But I mean, if you look at the offensive line play, I think it's pretty fair to say that he got the most out of some of those plays that were possible. And would you want to see him wait for routes to develop? Yes, but the opportunity wasn't there all night. And I think it's an equal part on the coaching staff where they have to be sure to call plays that aren't going to take super long to develop if you don't have the offensive line that can allow for them to develop. So it's a two-way street there. I am sure we're going to see Garrett Nussmeier at some point in this game, and I'm sure that it's not going to be toxic at all, and everyone's going to be happy and nice and not start any controversies. But to this point, I don't believe Jaden's shown us anything to where they have to switch him out or have to try someone out. I think that he is the team's leader. He is the team's quarterback, and I don't see that changing if Garrett Nussmeier comes out and has a good performance against Southern in the fourth quarter or whatever it is.
No, I agree completely with that. I think Jaden really – I was super impressed by those. I mean, that 99-yard drive in particular with 1:20 left, where he just pretty much put the team on his back. I would say that bought him a ton of insurance in terms of just his lead with that quarterback spot. I think they have a lot of faith in him, and I don't see that being much of an issue after this Southern game. So –
I do want to say, with that 99-yard drive, people are quick to say, oh, well, Florida State was playing soft defense. They were playing prevent defense. You still have to go out there and execute.
Yeah. And
executing a 98-yard drive against any defense is not easy. It was perfect clock management by everybody on the field. The 2-minute drive really was like the most competent thing that they put together. Yeah. And I think you have to feel a little bit better about that. And of course, the last thing that has to be better, and I don't know how we haven't talked about it, is special teams.
Oh, yeah.
We have to be sure. It sounds like Malik Neighbors is still going to be out there returning punts. Is that what you got?
That's what I kind of gather. I think they said Malik Neighbors had a really good week in terms of returning punts, and they've thrown in a couple of new drills there to, I think, kind of help with the eye discipline in that situation. But I think Malik Neighbors is still going to be returning punts on Saturday.
I think that's good. Get him that confidence. Listen, sometimes you just have the yips, and And I think that's really what it boils down to. But it sounds like everybody picked him back up. It sounds like the locker room's healthy as could be right now, amidst some unsubstantiated reports that players were about to leave, which is not even possible anymore with the new transfer windows. But even if it was, like, I don't know, it doesn't. That's not the vibe that I get from this team.
No.
Is that people are about to be leaving. It sounds like they're in a good spot, and I think throwing him out there and giving him another chance is better for the long run.
Yeah, I mean, what's the best remedy for the yips? It's to throw the guy out there again and try to give him some positive reinforcement there by showing you have faith in him. It's not benching him or anything like that. That just really messes with his psyche a little bit more. So I do think that it was probably a smart move to continue to get Malik those reps.
And it's obvious that you want him to get those reps, because I think it's clear that he is the most dynamic person on the team, and that's who he's the type of player you want out there returning punts. So when you get into a very tough week 3 matchup, you want to against Mississippi State, you want to know that you have a really talented punt returner and kick returner, and I think that it's clear that Neighbors is the most talented guy at that spot. You just need to get him solid in returning punts.
Yeah, I mean, his quick twitch and change of direction was something we talked about really all fall, and how improved it was and how dynamic that was. And then just also another thing about special teams, you got to get that left side figured out on field goals. I mean, you saw it, you saw Kelly really right after the game walking up to an LSU player talking about kind of what went wrong there. I think there were some missed assignments on who was supposed to be blocking who, and you can't have that. I mean, that's just fundamental stuff that you have to be able to execute at a Division I level. And I think LSU probably spent a good portion of practice this last week just rectifying and trying to get those issues down pat. I think that was pretty much what we wanted to touch on with the special teams, but there are a couple injury updates I think we should probably fill you guys in on. Obviously, Mason Smith is the big one. I think you're going to see a lot of Mekhi Wingo out there, but Mason's out for the year with that torn ACL, just a really devastating blow for him. And then another one that kind of cropped up later in the week that I think Sonny reported on Thursday, kind of throw a little tidbit out there and on a board. BJ Ojulari is a little bit, nicked up. I think it's more one of those nicks and bruises kind of deals. Not sure if he's in doubt of missing the game, but he might not play his full allotment of snaps. I mean, it is Southern. I think you can probably survive the game without him. But I think it's probably just a situation where LSU feels, you want to be very precautionary in those kinds of situations, especially with the team like Southern that you're going to be playing this weekend. Wouldn't be surprised if Ojulari sits, and if he does play, probably not a whole lot. Just a couple there to keep an eye on in terms of the front line of defense. I guess we can wrap it up here by just talking about the significance of this game. I mean, we touched on it a little bit earlier with Dylan. He did a nice little breakdown there for us, but I'm just super excited, man. I think this is a really unique opportunity here where two college institutions that are in the same city get to play one another. It's a great kind of rebuilding or remodeling or just coming together of this city in terms of the people and the tailgating, the pregame festivities that are going to be really fun. Obviously, the two marching bands is going to be a really fun halftime experience and pregame experience as well. Really happy that LSU wanted to do this and wanted to give that opportunity for Southern to come here, and I know that Southern is extremely appreciative, and I think that it's just going to be a really great afternoon and a great day overall. So, what are guests? You kind of lived up in this area a long time. Just what do you think the significance of this game would be, just from a off the field level in terms of these two institutions playing each other?
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever been in Baton Rouge, there are only two flags you see. There's an LSU flag or a Southern flag. There are people who never go to LSU games. There are people who never go to Southern games. This is bringing the city together, and I think the best way possible, surrounding them by with food and beer, and just having everybody party for a couple hours, and then having the bands come out, and what was reported to be a little bit more of a battle of the bands, which sounds like a terrible idea on LSU's part, is going to be a little bit more of performing together at halftime for some Louisiana classics. So I'm super excited for that, and really just on a like a state level, it makes sense if LSU is going to be paying all of these teams to come in and play. It makes sense to keep that money in state or even in city in this case. Brian Kelly mentioned he wants to keep playing like the Southerns, the Gramblings, if they do have to play these FCS opponents. Plus, it's just another time to spotlight some HBCU talent, which is always a great opportunity. I'm just excited. This is about as cool of an experience and cool of an environment that you could build around an LSU versus an FCS opponent.
No, I completely agree. I think it's going to be a really fun atmosphere, a really fun time, and like you said, it's going to be a day full of good vibes, which I think is just something that you really want to see early in the season to kind of get your football season off right. So
get your parking ready early.
Yes.
And this is whenever I'm very excited that I'm in the media and I have a parking pass, so I don't have to worry about it. But leaving is going to be an experience. If it's anything like the Garth Brooks concert, it's going to be a mess, which it could be more people, counting the people outside of the stadium.
Yeah, I'm a little bit on the luckier side there. I live a few blocks from campus, so I think I'll probably just bite the bullet and walk to the game. So that's probably going to be my plan of routine there. But yeah, I mean, it'll be a ton of fun. And Dylan and I will both be there. We'll be outside of the tailgating routes for a little bit. Probably head inside and hopefully watch a fun game and an entertaining battle between these two intercity opponents. So.
Just a quick, we weren't planning on doing this, but there's a big matchup outside of the team. There are two pretty big SEC games. Well, soon to be SEC game in Alabama, Texas, and that's going to be that's going to be your morning cap, your morning kickoff. Is there anything you're interested, again, on the spot, but anything you're interested in learning about this pretty big game against two potential LSU yearly opponents?
Yeah, so I think Texas is probably not favored by about 20 points. I think Alabama's the favorite by about 3 touchdowns there in that game. I'm just going to be very interested to see how Sarkisian looks against Saban. I mean, we've heard all the hoopla about Saban and facing his assistant coaches and his success rate, and kind of Kirby being the first one to knock him off last year, or actually no, Jimbo and then Kirby knocked him off in the same year. But I'm just going to be very interested to see how Texas holds up. I mean, they are going to be a part of this conference very soon. I think it's going to be, if Texas can break that 2-score kind of mold, I think that would be probably a win for them if they don't get blown out right from the start. But I do think Bama's going to win this pretty handily. I think that's probably a given. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a future LSU opponent against a quality team, so I'm going to be excited to see that, but also just see how good this Bama team is. They handled Utah State. There were some questions. I'm sure they're going to be great again, and it's going to be annoying again. Just to have to watch them play. I don't know. Personally, I think watching Alabama play football is kind of fun just because they're just so good at every position. At this point, I'm kind of numb to them.
Yeah.
And then the other one, just to touch on quick, that's important for LSU fans to keep their eye on, is Florida and Kentucky, because Florida, you play in the first half of the season, and there were a ton of questions on what Anthony Richardson's going to look like. Of course, he didn't look great against LSU last year, but he looks like a whole new quarterback this year. Just from week 1, he looked insane, looked really, really good. And just pure throwing the ball, he looked much better, much improved. So that's a situation that LSU is going to have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, I think Richardson, if the season ended after week one, he'd be on a short list for Heisman candidates. I think he probably helped his case out a lot in that week one win over Utah. I'm going to be very interested to see kind of how Billy Napier and those guys face against a true SEC opponent, because Kentucky comes in with a lot of high expectations as well with their quarterback Levis, and I think there's going to be that's going to be a very fun quarterback matchup. I'm going to be very interested to see how those two go back and forth throughout the game.
Yeah, it's all of a sudden, Florida wins a game, and now this is like one of the premier matchups.
Yeah.
Another LSU opponent. We don't have to go too deep into this one, but another LSU opponent in Tennessee is playing Pitt. This is a week where you're actually maybe if you don't learn a ton from the LSU game, you're going to be able to learn a lot about LSU's opponents this year because they have some tough matches around here.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's going to be one to watch. I know that Tennessee is probably one of those games this year where kind of heading in, you thought maybe that might be a good opportunity for LSU against an SEC opponent, but I don't think you can kind of make any assumptions about this LSU team until you start to see some consistency for 4 quarters. So, I think with that, we'll probably get you out of here, guys. We really appreciate the support. Again, like the button on the YouTube page. Give us a shout out on subscription on podcast forums, Spotify, and on Apple. With that, I'm Glenn West. He's Dylan Sanders, and we'll catch you guys next time.